Sorry guys, you guys have to kind of keep switching on and off as this thing works and then doesn't work. Trying to use the new YouTube app as far as being able to do this live chat thing. I guess on the iPhone YouTube app they've got a live option, and supposedly I'll be able to read your comments. At least it's got an option for that. You guys send me some sort of comment or something. I have no idea how this app works. I've been doing the other stuff on my laptop. I wanted to try it this way to see if it works better this time around. So alright. Cool. Alright, Mr. Anderson. Good. I'm liking this app. How is the how's the quality? Is it better this week than last week? Yeah, cool. Alright. So we're good to go. We got just a minute. I'm gonna step away for just a second and be right back. Alright guys, I'm back. My phone is fixing to die, so I'm gonna go ahead and just plug it in while I'm using it here. Let's see if that set up. Yeah, I know, JT. I'm scared to actually do it in landscape, because I did that a minute ago, and this new app started glitching on me and wasn't working. Just kind of try it like that. I hope it's not too bothersome for you guys to be in the portrait view or whatever. Alright, so is Sentinel, is he on? He had a question from Patreon regarding some of the videos that we were doing over there, and I was going to go ahead and address it. He might not be on. He did message me and say that that he might be a little bit. So basically, for Sentinel, the question that he had asked, and it's just easier to demonstrate for you guys. So the question that he had asked was, first we want to make sure that it's safe, so always check the barrel, you know, make sure that it's safe. Blue gun people, okay, don't freak out. So the question that he had asked was, we were talking about kinesthetic alignment, and he had asked about why I bring my hand to my chest. And the reason for this is basically, it's kind of a drawn out answer. I bring it here because this is the soonest point at which I'm going to start marrying my hands together. And understand that this is coming from a combatives perspective. Now, there's a lot of guys out there who advocate for the straight line approach. And what I mean by the straight line approach is, when I go to access my pistol, I'm going to actually marry my hands, so I'm actually going to simulate a clap and marry my hands in the middle of the punch out. And the idea is that it's faster for me to get from point A at my holster to a full extension. It's faster if I move in a straight line, which is just common sense. I don't disagree with this premise at all. However, is it necessarily faster to go from here to here? To retention? Is it faster to go to retention from the holster, or is it faster to go from the holster to full punch out using that that clap method where I essentially join my hands and I use that straight line approach to punch out? And the answer is yes. Okay, the question is, why do I bring my hand to my chest? Well, because that's the midway point for me. That is the soonest point at which my hands are going to marry to the gun. So when I go to access, I'm going to go to retention here, so I can go ahead and start accessing, or I can start utilizing my firearm immediately. That muzzle is pointed down range. If at any point I need to use it, I can use it now. Now, if my threat is 25 yards out, whatever, that's fine. I can just immediately come straight up and engage if I want. But I don't want to develop habits for two separate draw methods based on where that individual is at. So what I want to do is I just build in a path. So I access my firearm, I go to retention. If that threat is further out, I come to compression. So the halfway point, or the point at which I want to join my hands, is going to be somewhere between the holster, or rather retention. It's going to be somewhere between retention and compression. And that point is right here. The other reason why the hand is on the chest during the draw is so that I don't inadvertently, using that straight line approach, that point from the holster all the way out to full extension, what I don't want to do is I don't want to do this, where I'm trying to marry my hands too soon and I'm actually flagging my hand. Now, I've seen guys actually do this with sims and various different platforms where they actually shoot themselves in the hands under stress. So the idea is that you get your hand into a safe place where there's no possibility of it getting shot. So hand comes to the chest, muzzle, as soon as that muzzle clears the holster, it's pointed down range, at which point if I have a distant shot, I come up to compression and I punch out. This also allows me a straight line approach with my punch out, as opposed to coming up in a straight line from the holster. Now, you may disagree with the approach. That's fine, that's your choice, but understand that the perspective that I am seeing the problem from is from the perspective of combatives, which means that I am working in much closer ranges than, let's say, somebody who is worried about speed shooting on a 10-yard target or a 15-yard target. I'm looking at this from the perspective of individuals are going to be within arm's reach of me, or at very least they're going to be within twice arm's reach of me. Okay, so my arm extension plus their arm extension, which means that if I go here and I just come straight out to punch out, I run the risk of him grabbing hold of my firearm, which I'm not going to do. So looking at the problem from a combative's perspective, the way that I go about teaching this, hand comes to the chest, so when I come back to the holster, hand comes to the chest, I establish my grip. From here I come up, muzzle is immediately pointed down range. As soon as that muzzle clears the holster, hand comes together, it marries at compression, then I punch out to extension, it comes back in the same way. That way my hand is never in the way, it's always in a safe place. So, kind of a long answer to the question, but I thought that it would be easier to demonstrate it versus versus trying to type it out and explain it. So, Sentinel, if that answers your question, let me know. Otherwise, you can message me and we'll go about it another way. So, did you guys have any other questions? I had a couple issues come up during the week. Had an individual who got a little butthurt at me when I replied with sarcasm, and I don't know why, because you guys all know that sarcasm is like my second language. But he had questioned about biting the guy's artery and so on and so forth. And I'm going to be uploading a talk that we had in this past combative class that we did just this past Saturday. And it was a discussion that we had. I'm going to be putting it up on YouTube so you guys can see the feedback from the students. They were raising certain questions, I was addressing certain questions, and this was a topic that came up. The individual that I'm referring to commented, he kind of got butthurt and unsubscribed, and I don't really care, but you get what you pay for, bro. So when it's all said and done, YouTube is free, and you're viewing content for free. So if you're unhappy, feel free to move on down somewhere else. That's fine. I'm not going to tamper or temper rather my demeanor to suit somebody's sensibilities. So anyway, is everybody able to comment still? I was getting comments earlier. I'm going to try this. I hope this doesn't screw it up. Rotate back. Oh, okay, so it did go sideways. Okay, well, yeah, I'm using YouTube's new app, which allows you to do live streaming, and as opposed to a third-party app that I was using the last couple weeks, I wanted to see if maybe I got better reception this way. So we'll see if it's any better. I guess some of you guys said that it was better than before. Also wanted to throw this out there, guys. I'm not leaving YouTube. I'm still going to be putting content up every week. There's still stuff that I'm going to be putting on there, but by and large, a lot of the content that I put up there, either I fight with YouTube about, or I fight with retards about who are commenting, and I would just assume not. So you're probably right, FEMA, but I have no idea what it is. Anyway, if you guys check out the Patreon site, one of the things about Patreon is that you can also type stuff, like I can type out issues about security or combatives or self-defense in general or security in general, and a lot of that stuff I'm making available to the public. It's not just people who are paying. I do feel obligated to give the people who are paying something extra, but I'm not by any means holding back information or material or whatever just because somebody doesn't have the ability to pay. There is still a lot of content on Patreon. If you go over there and you check out I think it's Patreon and then Redbeard Combatives all together. If you go over there and check it out, there's a lot of free content on there as well, just different articles and videos as well. So certainly check it out. Don't be dissuaded by the fact that Patreon is a pay site or something like that. There are certain things that you have to pay for because that's the purpose of Patreon. But by and large, I'm not going to withhold information or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that's free as well. So the new format that we've been going through, I've been trying to get in some sort of a system as far as putting together like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu positions and then combatives positions. And so you guys bear with me on the YouTube channel. Like usually one day a week I'll put together some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu positions, and then then maybe one day a week I'll put together the combatives application of that position or a similar variation to it. So don't get all spun up about the fact that this position is just for gi jiu-jitsu or something. It's not. I'm going to get to a combatives aspect, but I have certain days that I teach combatives and I have certain days that I teach straight Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So understand that I'm trying to give you a lot of the details and definition behind the foundations of what I'm teaching in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but then when I get to, do I use the D for multiple shots? I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. Yeah, can you explain to me? I don't even know how to go back and view past comments. Oh, there it is. To use the D for aim on multiple shots. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not sure what you mean by do I use the D. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about beforehand. I'm trying to address some questions and comments that come up during the week to fill some of the dead air in between you guys asking questions. So just can you talk about your hands-on classes you host in Florida? Really, a lot of the guys that I teach on a handpicked basis. These are guys that either I've known for years or I've trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu already, and I've chosen to take them on in the area of combatives. But as far as hosting classes like on a continual basis, what I typically like to do is I like for an individual to host a location, and I appear at that location. You know, we advertise it on YouTube, advertise it on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook. You know, as long as we can get a minimum of 10 people going, then we'll go ahead and we'll put the class on at that location. It doesn't have to be necessarily an area where we can do live fire, just as long as we have a space to be able to do force on force. You guys know that I'm an advocate of that. So, and as far as that being in Florida, I mean, I'm in the central Florida area, but you know, I'm not opposed to traveling around either. I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Anderson. So what did you guys think of the parody video that I just loaded up about the 1%? Did anybody get it? Did they understand it? I think there's probably a significant delay in this. I do like this new app. It's awesome. I was having to use my phone before to actually film, but the app that I was using to do the live chat before, you couldn't see the comments, so I would have to set my phone on the laptop, read the comments on the laptop, and film with the phone, which is now using twice as much bandwidth on something that I have limited internet access to anyway, just because we're so far out in the sticks that, you know, internet is sketchy. So this app makes it easier, the new YouTube app makes it easier for me to be able to see everything, be able to see people's questions. One of the, it was funny. Okay, great parody. Gonna have to sign up for Patreon to see the rest. Definitely got a kick out of it. Already subbed to PJF's account there. I'll have to take a look at that. Okay. Dang, a bunch of comments started coming in at once. Okay. Yeah, dude, you know, guys, check out the Patreon account. All right, I'm not in any way. This was something that I put out kind of on my verse by verse, my biblical channel. I got into this whole YouTube thing just as a matter of chance and circumstance, if you want to call it that. I personally look at it as God being involved and kind of pulling me into this. But I was making videos for Sunday school class for some of the guys who were in my class who weren't able to actually show up to Sunday school class. And I was making videos so that they could keep up with the lessons. And then we had the similar circumstance where guys who were training with me and they maybe had to work on a Saturday, so we were making videos so that they could be able to keep up on training and not slow the class down. And then PJF saw some videos and advocated, and literally in one day I went from like 8 subscribers to over 2,000. Um, so I really quickly had to kind of ramp up and figure out what I was doing, put together some sort of a plan as far as what videos I was going to release and how and when, and how do you put this stuff up there, and how does Google work. And so I am still trying to catch up to all this stuff. And Patreon really was no different. When PJF moved over to Patreon, I went over there to start up an account so that I can like his page, because that's what he was asking. And so I went and set up an account over there, and then I couldn't figure out how to do it. So you go up in a D. Yeah, I've actually never heard that technique before, Jesse. As far as using the D, I essentially, in my draw process, I use an L, an upside down L. I come from the holster, hands come up my body, punch out, come back down in the same fashion. So that's my typical draw stroke. Um, and I find that from a combatives aspect, it's got more applicability than the straight line approach. Even though I could probably get to full extension faster, I from a combatives aspect, it doesn't really make any difference if I get to full extension faster, only to get disarmed. So, but anyway, so I set up over there on Patreon and started going through, putting videos up, and actually, I think I put just an introduction video up, and then I had guys like sending money to the channel, and I didn't even have any content up there. So now I was like, well, damn, I feel obligated to put something on there because these guys are paying for stuff. So that's kind of what happened with Patreon. It's kind of taken off organically. It's not really a case of I'm making a move to Patreon. I'm still producing content on YouTube, and will continue to do so, but I'm not reducing the content that I'm putting on YouTube. I'm putting the same content that I would have put before. I'm just using Patreon to put maybe additional detail, more in-depth stuff. The videos can be a little longer because these guys, um, they're not worried about. I mean, they're paying for the content, so they don't mind sitting there and watching a 10 or 15 minute video, as opposed to YouTube, like the average attention span is like 5 minutes. So that's how I'm kind of treating that. And if it takes off, fine. If not, whatever. It's all good. Did did you guys watch the series on the kinesthetic alignment? I put some highlights on there. I wanted you guys to get at least the gist of what we're talking about, the reasons behind it, why it's important, especially from a combatives aspect, and by combatives, understand that I'm not separating gunplay from defensive tactics the way that most people do. In my opinion, that gun is an extension of you. If you carry a gun, you need to know how to fight with it, and I don't mean that in the tactical ninja sense of the word gunfighter. I'm talking about you literally need to know how to fight with a gun, not get out there and just shoot and do combat roles and stuff. But you're going to have to use that pistol at close range to be able to both fight off attacks and defend yourself, and to be able to turn that pistol around and muzzle strike, and employ it the way it's designed, and just various different things. Clear malfunctions while you're tied up with a guy. Um, those are all things that, eh, at least from my perspective, I don't think anybody is teaching, but is far more relevant than being able to shoot 3 dummies at 2 foot away, um, that are completely static. And and the guy backs up to do it. So anyway, hot button issue for me. So I'll stay away from that. What's better in your opinion, 5.56 versus 7.62 in reference to semi-auto rifles, long distance precision shooting? Really, it depends on the platform, I think. 7.62, obviously, it depends on whether or not we're talking about 7.62 by 39 or 7.62 by 51. It depends on kind of what we're talking about. The 7.62, though, just by nature of the fact that the round itself is heavier, is going to be able to buck the elements better. So for long distance shooting, for terminal ballistics, which is where that round actually impacts what it's hitting, what it does when it gets there, the kinetic energy that it hits with to knock down whatever. All right, so 7.62 by 39. So yeah, I mean, basically, the round is going to hit with a greater impact. I mean, if you're asking the effectiveness of the AK versus the AR, I know guys who were taking 1,000-yard shots with 5.56. I mean, no BS. These guys can take 1,000-yard shots with 5.56. The round is capable of far more than people give it credit for, but you're going to have to be a more skilled shooter to take a round that weighs, let's say, anywhere from 55 to 72 grains. You're going to have to be more skilled at reading elements and things like that, reading the atmosphere. You're going to have to be more skilled to be able to put those rounds accurately downrange at longer distances, because the elements are going to affect that round more, as opposed to if I'm shooting a heavier round, something that can actually buck those elements better. So it really depends on the application. 5.56 has got a lot of velocity, but it's got a lower mass. 7.62 has still got a high velocity, but it's larger mass. So I mean, it really just depends. If the question is about the AKAR argument, the AK is plenty accurate. If that's the perspective you're coming from as far as precision. So, I mean, I'm not sure what you're looking at, Ethan, as far as from the prepper aspect. I mean, if you had to buy one gun, what would it be? I don't know what perspective you're coming from. So, M1 SOCOM 308 or AR-15 5.56 for minute. Both have 16-inch barrels. Really, bro, it's going to be mission specific. As far as like an all-round good gun, that M1A SOCOM is a good gun. I mean, it's 308, certainly capable of taking down large game, and I think it's considered a battle rifle, so it's certainly good enough to be able to fend off people. But you can also use it for hunting. 5.56, you can use it for hunting and stuff, but I don't think it's going to be the ideal weapon as far as like a prepper type scenario, if that's what you're looking at. So it depends on the mission. Patreon's a good move. YouTube, dissing Patreon, folks, filtered out. Okay. No second shot, you bring the gun in around. Never heard of that technique, bro. Maybe you can post a link to a video where somebody is doing something like that. Maybe it'll make sense if I see it, but just based on the typing and trying to visualize it, I don't really comprehend what you're getting at there. So, got a couple more minutes here. You guys have any other questions specifically? Yeah, I'm sorry, bro. I mean, you're probably explaining it right. I'm probably just not visualizing it properly. I'm just not seeing it. But something that came up in class the other day was I made a video a little while back about do you think or do you know? And I'm just kind of sitting in a lawn chair out in the pasture and stuff. And the question was, do you think or do you know? And I kind of went into a scenario where I was working overseas at the time. And the video was starting to run long, so I never got to really get into a lot of the things that I wanted to touch on. But the intent was even in the area of combatives. All the time I see guys coming out and saying, I don't do MMA. I do, lethal killer ninja stuff. Um, I can't tell you how many times teaching I've had guys come in and tell me, well, I would just do this. I would just throat chop or rip your throat out or do this. And my question is always the same. Really? I mean, how many people have you actually done that to? How many throats have you actually ripped out? Do you think you can rip out somebody's throat, or do you know it because you've done it? Because there's a vast difference. And we've talked about this as far as comprehension, apprehension, and conditioned response. Me getting in there and snatching somebody's throat out, yeah, I've never done that, okay? But I've broken arms and I've broken legs. I know I can do it because I've done it. I've put people unconscious before. I've done it. I know what my capabilities are. Been there, done that. Snatching somebody's throat out, biting their ear off or something like that, yeah, I haven't done that. Have I had people try to do it to me? Yeah, I have. Have they been successful? Nope. So when I hear a lot of this kind of stupid, arrogant stuff about, you know, I don't train for MMA, I train for real life. What the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because MMA is not a style. By definition, MMA is mixed martial arts. It's a mix of various different styles. And what we do is we get in there and we create an environment where it's at least halfway safe to beat the crap out of each other to test theories. So when people throw out this stuff, I do the Kung Fu Ninja stuff and I kill people, I mean, that's what I learned. My first response is, awesome. How many people have you actually killed? So, anyway, something to go for. So, Ethan, definitely for prepper and Minutemen purpose. Sorry for the delay doing family stuff. All right, roger that. Yeah, Ethan, if I had one rifle between, let's just say that M1A SOCOM and the 5.56, if I had one rifle and I had to choose one, both 16-inch barrels, I would probably go with the M1A. It's got a lower round capacity. I believe you can get 20 round mags for that thing, but as far as the effectiveness of the rifle, both from a self-defense aspect and as far as being able to be just generally all around more useful for things that you're far more likely to encounter in a prepper type scenario, things like having to hunt and things like this, you know, that's going to be a better rifle as far as, that's my opinion. That's the route that I would go. I know that doing work on ship, one of the things that we got to see was that 7.62 rounds will penetrate 3/8 inch steel, go right through, where depending on the type of round and the distance and the angle, sometimes 5.56 wouldn't. So that being the case, I think you can make an argument for a round that's got more mass, that's got more penetrations, got that greater capability from a self-defense type aspect than maybe a 5.56. But I mean, there's arguments on both sides. The availability of parts for, let's say, an AR, in the event that something breaks, you're probably going to find ARs everywhere. you may not find another M1A. So you can get 25 round mags. Okay, so you can get 25 round mags. Yeah, I'm not real familiar with the weapon system. I'm familiar with, as far as the availability, I'm familiar with the platform. All right, I don't have anyone in my area teaching BJJ. What is a good alternative to BJJ? Are you sure you don't have anybody teaching BJJ? I mean, a good alternative. Look, anything you train is going to be better than nothing, within reason. I'm not a real big fan of Taekwondo. I've done Taekwondo. Taekwondo, when it came over from Korea, it had its merits. It was solid. Since then, we've westernized it, and it's been polluted and bastardized, and just it's not what it once was. I don't think it's a viable system anymore. So that's just my opinion. I'm not knocking on anybody who's done it or anything like that, but again, do you think or do you know? You've been doing Taekwondo for 3 years, and you're 10 years old, and you've got your 3rd-degree black belt. Really? I mean, think about that for a second. Think about what black belt signifies. You know, and then ask yourself, I mean, does a 10-year-old really carry that capability? You know, probably not. So I would stay away from styles like that. If you had to train something besides BJJ, I would look for some type of submission wrestling. I know in what is that one style? Hapkido, they do some stuff, but the detail is just not there. Judo is actually not too bad, but there's a lot of rules in judo. You have to understand that. You know, and you don't want to get too dependent. You are in Ocala. I'm a couple hours away. I'm near Orlando. But yeah, I mean, as far as something you're going to do, what is that one style that Bruce Lee actually came up with? I forget the name of it, but they did some grappling in that. There's probably not too many locations where you're not going to have the ability to do some kind of BJJ. There's probably BJJ somewhere out there. It may not be well advertised, but if you let me know your location, I can find out, you know, if there's any schools in that area, and then send something to you. All right, well, Jeet Kune Do, that's what it was. Thanks, Mr. Anderson, I appreciate it. All right, Krav, Ninjutsu, Karate, Taekwondo. Yeah. Krav, maybe? Look, like I said, anything you do is going to be better than nothing. Like we've talked about before, as far as I did a video on trained versus untrained. Your body just needs something to default to other than panic. We've all heard of fight or flight. Well, fight or flight, it depends on the person and kind of their psychological well-being, things like that, based on whether or not they're going to fight or they're going to flight. But also it depends on options, because if your brain has no options to default to, you're more likely to default to flight than you are to fight. And I'm not saying that fleeing is not a viable option, but if I'm in a circumstance where somebody pulls a gun, if I'm in some sort of life-threatening circumstance, I would rather have that option to be able to flee or run than I would to have as my only option run. So combatives is all about options. It's all about covering all the angles. It's a chess game. The more options you have, the more ability you have to approach the problem from different directions, the more likely you are to survive that encounter, as opposed to you're in a situation where somebody comes in with a gun and the only thing you have to default to is to run away. You're going to be in trouble. So I'll keep the M1A in mind. 20 rounds is more than enough. I'll have to listen to the rest. Have dinner. Thanks for the advice. No problem, brother. And also, they did say 25 rounds, so you could probably get 25 round mags for that. So, but anyway. All right, guys. I'm going to give it like 4 more minutes. We're kind of running over a little bit, but I'll give it like 4 minutes. If you guys don't have any other questions, then we'll tie it off. And I've got some editing to do, and then I'll be posting a couple of videos up this week regarding some positions that we're doing in Jiu-Jitsu, and even a conversation that took place earlier in the week as far as comments. An individual had commented, and it was a conversation that based on those comments that we had in class, and I had addressed those issues. So it might be something you guys can probably pull from that conversation and gather some information there that would be helpful and useful. So, all right. The quality seems to be a lot better. I appreciate it, brother. Where are you at, Lou? Are you you in the U.S. or? Good connection tonight. Awesome. Yeah, I think this new app works a lot better than kind of the old way I was setting it up. Oh, okay, you did say that. Yeah, South Central Nebraska. Should I continue Muay Thai or Krav, or is Krav more practical if no BJJ? I would continue Muay Thai. I mean, Muay Thai is a solid style. But understand, I don't care whether it's Krav, I don't care whether it's Wing Chun, I don't care if it's Muay Thai. Understand that every single striking style is based on a range. It's effective at a specific range. So, Taekwondo has got a greater range because it utilizes more of those extended kicks. But Krav Maga and Muay Thai uses a lot of knees and elbows, and it works within close distances, just like Wing Chun does. But it's a closer range, but it's still a range. BJJ works at zero range. You can't get any tighter than zero range. And the reason why range is important is because, just for instance, you're a Muay Thai guy and you fight a BJJ guy. If he stays in your effective range, then you're good, you're solid. But if he comes inside your effective range, he's going to take you out of your game. And then it's going to become a problem. It doesn't have to be BJJ. It could be just purely a wrestler. So understand that range is important. Is it okay to mix styles, or is it better to focus on one style? No, I would mix, absolutely. I would look for a consistent methodology, though. I would be careful about being in situations where, let's say, Taekwondo is telling you, no, you need to retreat, and BJJ is saying, no, you need to close in. When you have those kinds of conflicts in methodology, you're going to end up with with kind of an asymmetrical learning. It's not going to balance. It's not going to make sense. You're going to have conflicts in how you react to situations. So whatever you're going to train, at very least, you need to keep in your mind the limitations of this style. So if this guy is this far out, I'm going to utilize my Taekwondo, but if he comes in close, I'm going to switch over to BJJ. You have to kind of keep that in mind, which I don't think a lot of people have done a really good job of teaching, is a consistent methodology that works throughout the program, whether armed, unarmed, whether striking, grappling, it doesn't matter. Even in the military, I see conflicts and methodologies where guys are saying, okay, you have a gun, back up. Okay, you don't have a gun, come in. This guy's got a gun, back up. You know, it's just there's conflicts everywhere. Um, Whereas when you actually go through and you actually demonstrate it, some of those conflicts create problems, and a lot of those conflicts exist because of the detached nature of uh, gun training, of your firearms training, and defensive tactics, and you blend those together and you get combatives, which the U.S. Army has done some of the best work in kind of rectifying those problems. But they've got their own set of unique challenges, like training 200,000 guys up to a certain proficiency level. I mean, it's taken me 16 years to get to where I'm at. I can't spend that kind of time on the average grunt. I mean, I couldn't train him up to that level in 16 years. So I got to try to skim off the top and give him material that he can actually be able to do something with in 6 weeks. All right. What makes you decide whether to close or retreat in a fight? What are you looking for as far as making a decision? Um, Options. Uh, Basically, if you go back and you watch one of the videos, it's a little bit of a loaded question because it gets into a whole bunch of variables. Are you armed? Is he armed? Do you have cover available to you? Is it a gun that you're facing? Is it a knife that you're facing? Is there more than one guy? Is there, things like this? If you go back and you watch the first like 5 videos I think I did, you'll see them. They're called Basic Strategies, and it's 1 through 5, and it talks about this, but it looks at the problem from a small unit tactics perspective, and then I tie that into an individual perspective and how that all ties together. Um, so really the answer is, how do you decide? It's going to depend on the scenario. You know, if I'm facing 2 attackers, is it safer for me to retreat back, or is it safer for me to close in? Well, I mean, the answer is, do I have cover? Can I get to cover before they can access their firearms? Do they even have firearms, or do they only have, is it just them with no weapons? Do they have a bat? Do I have a firearm? Do I have a knife? It's based on a lot of different variables that you really can't get into without actually having a couple people and having a scenario that's actually set up. By and large, if I'm facing multiple attackers, the safer place for me to be, if I don't have a position of cover, is going to be to assault in. So, I mean, that's basic small unit tactics. The safest place for me to be in a near ambush, if I don't have cover, is to assault into the target. And this is something that we know is valid and works, and it doesn't not work just because you take the problem down to an individual perspective. Um, so I don't know if that answers your question, Reaper. All right, guys. So we kind of went way over, but anyway, I will. I'll see you guys. Be back on next week. All right, yeah, check out those. Great chat. God bless. Thanks, brother. God bless you too. All right, I will see you guys next week, and as always, train hard.